So beautiful. Just want to pause for a moment in the savoring of the sweetness of that performance and the fact that somebody can write music like that. We're about to hear in the Isaiah passage about when humans lose their sweetness. It's a bit of a heavy sermon today, sorry about that. So this balance was perfect, Denise and Christopher. Thank you. Humans are capable of such incredible sweetness. There is a reason that Teresa of Avila says that we are God's treasure. We are God's treasure. Wow. But that's an example of maybe why. We're going to sing Psalm 139 together, just in case you wonder. No, I don't use this at every single sermon, every time I go to church. I don't always use Psalm 139. But for whatever reason, every time I come and visit this church of Berlin, Vermont, God is like, Psalm 139. Yeah, I do love this. It was played at my wedding. But it's something specific to you guys. It's what I see in you. So I'll sing the first verse, and then if you would like to join in, if not, please just follow along and let the psalm soak in through your eyes and your ears. Oh God, you search me and you know me. All my thoughts lie open to your gaze. When I walk or lie down, you are before me, ever the maker and keeper of my days. You know my resting and my rising. You discern my purpose from afar. And with love everlasting you besiege me. In every moment of life or death you are. Before word is on my tongue, Lord, you have known its meaning through and through. You are with me beyond my understanding, God of my present, my past and future too. And although your spirit is upon me, still I search for shelter from your light. There is nowhere on earth I can escape you. Even the darkness is radiant in your sight. For you created me and shaped me, gave me life within my mother's womb. For the wonder of who I am, I praise you. Safe in your hands, all creation is made new. Now let's hear the lectionary reading from Isaiah.
Let me sing for my beloved my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He dug it and cleared it of stones and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it and hewed out a wine vat in it. He expected it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. And now inhabitants of Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I have not done? When I expected it to yield grapes, why did it yield wild grapes? And now I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or hoed, and it shall be overcome with briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is a host of Israel, and the people of Judah are his pleasant planting. He expected justice, but saw bloodshed, righteousness, but heard of crime.
May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart find their home in you, my God. my rock and safekeeper. Loving God, may I articulate your truth and not occupy these good people with my own irrelevant ideas. Amen. Now, as we begin, I want us to hold on one side the God of the psalmist who wrote Psalm 139, in one hand. And in this hand, we have a God who is so close and beloved to us that she, he, they knows every hair on our head. And they were there as we were being formed in the darkness of our mother's womb. Perhaps this is a little bit what Jesus was getting at when he called God Abba. Abba translates as Papa or Daddy. This is a God that we come from and that we are returning to. I think of it as like how we are individual rays of sunlight, independent individual rays, but we belong to our source, the blazing sun. There's no separation between the ray of sunlight and the God, the sun. Cynthia Bourgeault says nothing can fall out of God, and I love that description. So let's hold this intimate, familiar God alongside Isaiah's prophetic understanding of God as a force that can destroy the sour, wild grapes from his, her, their vineyard. This understanding of Isaiah's is vast and I can't say this word. I can never say this word. Omnipotent. Vast and omnipotent, expansive, cosmic creator God that is clearly not human and is clearly not sentimental. This understanding of the holy is more akin to a volcano or a lightning storm than that of Abba. And somewhere between these poles, our life matters. Our choices matter because they affect the whole. And as we stand between this awesome, frightening, tender, protective mama bear God, I ask us to be brave and also humble. In Psalm 139, we sang, "For the wonder of who I am, I praise you." But the original line, 139:14, is, "I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made." Human beings are fearfully and wonderfully made. And it seems to me that God has a lot more faith in us than we have in ourselves. We have the power of creation and creation's twin, destruction, in us. This is why I ask us to be humble. Because Christianity can be terrible in the hands of powerful people who decide they are right and that God is on their side. You know that hymn, "Onward Christian soldiers marching as to war"? I hate that hymn. Christopher's making a mental note. Okay, never sing "Onward Christmas Soldiers" when Simon comes. Now, it's not the tune, because the tune is cracking. It's good. It's the theology that I object to. Because it ignores the fact that Jesus came for his people who were oppressed, Jews, who were oppressed by soldiers. This is who Jesus is talking to in the Gospels. This is the tradition, him talking to his Jewish community. And it's why in today's Gospel reading, Luke 12:49, which I didn't include, Jesus says, "I am a divisive fire," he says. And this message is incredibly life-giving and healing for oppressed people under the threat of torture and the death penalty dished out on a whim by the Romans in control. Now, I'm guessing there might be a few people in Zoom who are Googling, Luke 12:49. Why did Simon leave that out? Well, because I'm a guest pastor, and I can't unpack it with you fully, but here's a flavor of it. Jesus says, I came to bring fire to the earth, and how I wish it was already kindled. Do you think I have come to bring peace to the earth? No, I tell you, division. From now on, 5 in one household will be divided, 3 against 2, and 2 against 3. They will be divided. This passage in the hands of oppressed people is so life-giving because it states that God's compassion and divine purpose is coming. And the cruelty that they are experiencing is already ending. Luke is talking about that underlining message of Christianity that salvation has been purchased for us. This idea that the hope has taken form, the word has taken form, and nothing can triumph over it. In today's world, I understand the salvation message as meaning that the oppression of the ruthless rich leaders and corrupt systems will implode. They will implode. Why? Well, because all evil ends at the grave. And it is not our true nature. And anything that is not our true nature will wither. There's also cause and effect. I can't help but notice that bullies tend to bite the hand that feeds them. And often they end up alone without anybody unpaid watching their back. Greed, cruelty, sourness, as we heard of it in Isaiah. These things such as prejudice are distortions of our human nature and of our sacred purpose. They are out of alignment with God's natural law and the laws of the universe. And as such, they will be weeded out of God's garden. I understand that this Luke passage, the one that we didn't hear, as well as the vineyard passage, point to the fact that built into our bodies, into our systems of society, and the earth itself is a safety valve. And that safety valve will not permit evil to have the last say or triumph over love. Only love and compassionate wisdom survive the refinement of death. Now, recently, as everything is becoming more and more chaotic, you might have noticed that yourself, people come to me saying, Mother Nature is angry at us. God is angry at us. Or I hear things on the TV like people saying, the fires in LA happened because too many people in Hollywood are sinners. No, and this is taking the Lord's name in vain. This is prejudice and sloppy thinking. That is not what is happening. Just look at the flip side, the recent floods in Texas. None of those poor people, especially those Girl Scouts, were being punished by God. That is not what happened. It just happened. Destruction is a force of nature. Terrible things happen from time to time. And in all of our lives, tragedy strikes. And then time stands still. And God weeps with us. Yes, our over-reliance on fossil fuels is creating climate chaos and climate refugees. But this is not God punishing us. It is a result of us living outside of harmony, balance, and the sacred laws of this universe. I believe that much of the destructiveness we experience in nature and society happens when we ignore God's law. And we forget that God is law. Here what I'm getting to is that uncreated God, this love itself, is made manifest and revealed through the laws of creation. Most people don't really like this idea of our mysterious God as being laws that hold life together like gravity. So we have anthropomorphized God. We've turned the mystery into a being. Father God, Mother God image causes us problems when natural disasters strike, because people ask themselves, how could a loving parent let this happen? God is not a loving parent. That is just a way that we use to reach out and be intimate. We are indeed wonderfully and frightfully made. And so is Mother Earth too. Destruction and frightening tsunamis and volcanoes are part of life. Likewise, in the human plane, addiction and people being born without empathy who become violent is also part of life. Situations such as the horrible floods in Texas or cruel leaders remind us that our projected, judgmental, parental, wrathful God is not a big enough concept. And here's another truth. Although we fear destruction and chaos, they bring new life and radical change. The aftermath of a disaster is grief and injury and suffering, yes. But it is also an outpouring of love from your neighbors, as well as the opportunity to begin again. Always, we begin again. And for so many people, myself included, the turning point in our lives is when everything goes wrong, when everything comes undone. I'm thinking especially of my grandfather, Walter Harry, who entered World War I. Yeah, we were quite old when people had children in my family. My grandfather was in World War I. He entered World War I, the trenches, as a clerk. But after he survived the horrors of warfare and also being a prisoner of war in Poland, he returned to Britain and became a clergyman. Did God send him to war? No, his king and country did. But did God work through this awful, harrowing, tragic circumstance that should never have happened? Did God work through that horror to refine and transform the soul of my grandfather? Yes. Welcome, come on in. Suffering should always be avoided. I am not excusing war or cruelty. Rather, I am saying that God's loving purpose and presence often become more visible and felt when we are living through a dark night of suffering. Likewise, we are not abandoned in our suffering, and we are not being punished because of our sins. That understanding of the holy must be retired. With modern medicine, there are many more incidences of people who die and then are brought back to life. These are called near-death experiences. And many of the people who die and come back have experiences during that time that they're dead. And they talk about seeing their life purpose or a life review. And in the life review, they describe how they experience moments from their life, but now from the perspective of everyone affected. How the moments of cruelty or kindness landed in other people. I think it's really important that we honor these near-death experience voices. When I first started preaching on this topic, I was surprised by how many people in the churches pulled me aside to say, I had an experience like that. Or emailed me afterwards. I think it's a lot more common than we realize. And up until recently, it wasn't something that people could talk about publicly because it wasn't held with reverence. My favorite and go-to teacher about near-death experiences is Julian of Norwich. I talked about her last time and I promised I would say some more, so here we are. Now, after she came back from her near-death experience 600 years ago, she brought insight into the nature of God, which remains as profound today as it did back then. during the Black Plague. So just in case you weren't here, she was dying and the life was going out of her body. She was going numb, and the priest was called and held a crucifix in front of her eyes and said, focus on Jesus as you're dying, and focus on him and you will fly right to him. And so everything went fuzzy, and then Jesus on the cross came alive and began to be in relationship with her, teach her, love her like a beloved family member. And then she did not die, but instead had the opportunity to talk with Christ about his passion and a lot of her struggles in faith. And one of the things she describes, this is the part that's relevant for today. So she's in the perspective of heaven, looking at life. She saw sin from the perspective of heaven, and she noticed that it had no substance. She was only able to see the pain that sin caused. I think this is remarkable. When she was in that place after death, sin no longer existed. There was no evidence of it anywhere, only the pain and the healing it had caused. Here's her words. The truth is, I didn't see any sin, and I believe that sin has no substance, not a particle of being, and cannot be detected at all except by the pain it causes. It is only the pain that has substance for a while, and it serves to purify us and make us know ourselves and ask for mercy. Think about the vineyard. Sin is only the pain of sin that has substance for a while, and it serves to purify us and make us know ourselves and ask for mercy. Jesus also told her that sin is inevitable. That's an interesting one for pious people that try not to sin at all. Jesus says sin is inevitable, Julian. Well, that wasn't her name. I don't know what her name was. Let's call her Mary. Jesus says all will be well, and all will be well, and every kind of thing shall be well. Here's some more words of Julian. She's called Julian, by the way, because that's the name of the church where she lived, and we don't know her name, so we just call her Julian because she lived at St. Julian's. As I pondered the word sin, my beloved Christ brought to mind a general sense of all that is not good. I saw that this was connected to the shameful contempt and dreadful tribulation he endured for us in his life and in his dying, and in the spiritual and physical suffering of all created beings. Eventually, we will be stripped of our worldly flesh and all the inner inclinations that are less than good. Now, Julian's quite bold. She argues with God. She argues with Jesus and says, but how? How can this be? She says, oh, good Lord, how can this all be well? The transgressions of your creatures have caused such harm. And Jesus says, since I have set right the greatest of transgressions, I want you to rest assured that I will make everything well. And in this book that Julian wrote down, she is told over and over, all shall be well. And there's a caveat. She says, God said, I am not promising that you will not suffer, but you will not be overcome by the suffering you experience. I assure you that all shall be well, and all manner of things shall be well. Julian of Norwich, most interesting read. It came to mind with the vineyard passage because both of them point to the idea that from the perspective of heaven and God, sin and evil cannot endure. And they will wither away, and they cannot pass into eternity. I understand this as meaning that the part of us that is out of alignment with the greater good, with God's purpose. That part of us cannot join God or participate in the cosmic dance and the bigger charisma of our purpose. Don't get me wrong, I am not ignoring sin and turning a blind eye to those who cause suffering. We should never ignore suffering. Love demands that we tend the world around us with care and alleviate suffering as best we can. But love also invites us to enter into the beauty of the cosmic dance and to experience life from a kinder, grander, more life-filled perspective where there is no room for sour grapes. The bitterness cannot endure. Another way of saying this might be that parable about where your treasure is, your heart is. Matthew 6:19. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in to steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will also be. I want to end with one more sung setting of the psalm, because it's a tool I find very useful for aligning with heaven, especially when fear creeps in. God is our refuge and our strength, a haven in times of trouble. Therefore we can be calm though the earth shakes, though the nations change and though the sea rises. Our trust is in the Holy One, who's making the heavens and the earth, who is with us in the midst of the city and in our own lives. See the longings for peace and justice in our hearts, and the way we can make our lives abundant in nearly any circumstance. God whispers to us, be still and know that I am God. I am with you to the ends of the universe, and through all time.